Welcome to Never Again News. Today's episode will feature an exclusive interview with one of the main expert witnesses on genocide, Luis Ocampo. Later in the program, we'll sit down with one of the 120,000 Reasons campaign founding members, the Philos Project. I'm Jack Calvertinis. Armenia was the first Christian nation on earth in 301 AD. Because of their Christian faith, they've been persecuted, and in 1915, 1.2 million Armenians lost their lives in a genocide. This tragic crime went unnoticed for decades until President Biden recognized it in 2021. The phrase, never again, was used at the time, but unfortunately, we now find ourselves back at the threat of repeating history. Now, quick news update. This past week has brought a lot of much-needed coverage of this growing crisis. First up, a protest in front of the White House demanding that the Biden administration help to end the Christian Armenian genocide. Hundreds of protesters carried signs stating 120,000 reasons to symbolize the 120,000 men, women, and children trapped just because of their Christian faith. The protest followed a long march through the streets of Washington.
Shame on Hollywood!
In Hollywood, mega celebrity Kim Kardashian, the 42-year-old star who is of Armenian descent, has co-written an article for Rolling Stone in which she pleads with Biden to take action to protect Armenians from Azerbaijan. Kardashian wrote, quote, Azerbaijan has blockaded the only lifeline between the indigenous Christian Armenians of Artsakh and the rest of the world. Meanwhile, back in Washington, D.C., Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey and chairman of the very powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee went on the Senate floor and demanded action.
Of course, to be an honest broker means we need to tell the truth about Azerbaijan's atrocities. We need to call out those individuals perpetrating this campaign of ethnic cleansing.
Former UN Ambassador for Religious Liberty and former U.S. Senator Sam Brownback had an op-ed published this week calling on GOP presidential candidates to get involved in this growing humanitarian crisis. In his op-ed, he writes the following: "The heart of the world's first Christian nation may soon stop beating." Well, thank you for your leadership, Senator Brownback. On the U.S. House of Representatives side of the Capitol, Congressman Chris Smith held a hearing with experts on genocide. Unfortunately, members of the U.S. State Department and USAID could not find time to attend. Next up, we're fortunate to have an exclusive interview with one of the main witnesses to the House Foreign Relations Committee. Luis Gabriel Moreno Ocampo is a senior fellow at Harvard, who was the first prosecutor of the new and permanent International Criminal Court. Welcome to the show today. My first question for you is, what was the main message that you were delivering to Congress and the White House?
A genocide already occurred because creating the conditions is a genocide itself, Article 2C. The blockade is a genocide itself. But Article 2B say when there are bodily or mental harm is a different kind of genocide, and that is happening.
What was the reaction to you calling this a genocide?
Well, what happened was, I am very impressed because Congressman Smith say it's an urgency, and I agree with him. It's an urgency. The Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh will die in winter, so it's an urgency to stop it. And he called for the meeting in few days, and I feel it's very strong. And then he follow up. After my testimony, he commit himself to send a letter to President Biden asking what they're doing on that.
If you had a meeting with President Biden tomorrow, what would you tell him and what action can he take immediately?
President Biden is the most powerful president in the world, so it's ridiculous that more than 4 times Secretary Blinken called Aliyev to remove the blockade, and Aliyev is not doing that. It's ridiculous that President of Azerbaijan ignored the restriction imposed by the US. So my feeling is President Biden could stop the genocide in 1 hour.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's very important.
Joining us today from the Philos Project is Dan Harre, head of the Leadership Network. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Your organization participated in a recent trip to the region. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, it was remarkable. Probably the most stunning day was when we went to Jarmuk. We get to the top of the mountain and we can see across over Jarmuk to the Azeri front lines, and we can see their positions over this small, again, essentially helpless village. If the Azeris wanted to, they could open up artillery fire and wipe the town out.
Let's talk about coalition building. There are so many religious leaders that have come together to shine a light on this religious genocide. Give us a better idea of who has joined this important cause.
Yeah, we have a number of actors. You have more traditional Christian persecution type actors. You have the Philos Project. You have In Defense of Christians. You have For the Martyrs, Global Christian Relief. But you've also got organizations that typically work on more domestic issues. The Family Research Council, the Family Leader, has huge influence in the Midwest and throughout the nation with its network of pastors. And so it's sort of a mix of that traditional advocacy-oriented NGOs, but also American domestically focused groups. I shouldn't forget the National Hispanic Pastors Association as well.
Well, I really appreciate you coming today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for helping shed a light on this important issue.
120,000 Reasons is the main central location to follow this important crisis. Please follow us on our website at 120,000reasons.org and 120,000 Reasons on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Never Again News.